Hey folks, if you ride around any neighborhood, you can see a lot of really well-maintained landscapes, but a lot of boring evergreens. And evergreens are great and we need them for structure in our landscape, and there's some really beautiful colored evergreens out there. But what if I can show you a beautiful shrub for your landscape that will flower in the spring and provide a lot of interest in the summer? Well, I've got one I want to show you today, but I'm also going to show you how to propagate that shrub as well. So stay tuned and let's go check it out. So this is Variegated Weigela. This is an older variety of Weigela. Most of the Weigelas you do see are going to be solid green leaves. There are a lot of patented versions of Weigela now in the marketplace that'll have burgundy or reddish leaves. This is variegated because it has these nice creamy margins on the outside of the leaf. But this shrub's going to lose its leaves in the wintertime and be dormant. Now, Weigela blooms in spring from April to May, depending on the zone that you're in. And the blooms start out white and fade to pink, creating a really interesting color combination with the blooms and the variegated green foliage that's emerging from the stems. The plant will grow at 6 to 10 feet tall, but can easily be pruned down to the size that you want it. It's going to be a hummingbird magnet, and it's got a very graceful arching stem structure, which is a very nice specimen plant for the garden. And if you stick with me through the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to propagate this plant to create more plants for your garden or to share with other people. And this classic Variegated Weigela is going to be good in zones 4 through 8. You can grow it in full sun or part shade, but you're going to get the most blooms by growing this plant in full sun. Now I have 2 of these shrubs, one here and one a little further down on my foundation. That's the one we were just looking at. This one is, I keep it around 4 feet along the side of my front porch, and it's a standalone specimen plant here, but it also is in the border with the Delta Jazz crepe myrtle and New Gold Lantana, as well as Pennisetum. I'm going to take some cuttings from this one, and we're going to propagate some more shrubs, which is actually how I grew this particular shrub. So what I typically look for, and this is July, and typically look for softwood cuttings, and that's a good example. It's fairly pliable. It's not extremely woody yet, but you can still see it's green here, but it's firm, and so that's a good time to take a cutting from Weigela. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you how to propagate these. All right, so I'm going to try to do this. I'm holding the camera and my clippers at the same time, so I only have 2 hands, so cut that clipping there. All right, I'm going to get 4 or 5 more here, and I'll show you how we put them in a propagation box. So all you need for propagation is something simple like this, and there's other ways to do this, but this is a basic storage container I picked up at the store, and picked up this paver sand from the big box store, and that's the medium I prefer to use for propagation. Roots will grow in it as long as you keep them moist and keep the leaves moist, and I'll show you how to do that. But this basically creates a small micro greenhouse effect that helps your plants retain their moisture when they don't have a root system. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually put some painter's tape, and where I did not tape, I've painted the top of the lid, and that will allow some shading to happen, because you don't want your cuttings to be in full sunlight. Even if they're plants that like full sun, they need to be protected from the full sun as they're developing a root system. So that's what I've done here to create a little bit of more shading for the plants. You don't have to do this. You can actually just place the box under some shade if you have shade trees or an area you can protect it from the sun. Just as long as they can get a little bit of light or dappled light, that will help. Now I've drilled 2 holes in the bottom for drainage, and that'll be very important. Make sure you have some drainage in the bottom of your container. I drilled these with a 1/2 inch drill, and that should be enough for drainage. So we've got our cuttings, and now we're going to prepare them to put in the propagation box. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, this cutting is a pretty decent length, and so I'm going to cut this one probably 2 to 3 times, so we hopefully get 2 to 3 plants out of this cutting. And so what I'll do is I'm going to take the leaves off the bottom here. I'm just going to clip those just below, and I'm going to cut this one at an angle, as you can see there, and clean this off. It's okay if there's a little bit of leaf structure there. You want to have 2 leaf nodes on that cutting in order to grow. This one's going to go in the ground, this one's going to be out, and this is where your roots are going to grow from. So I'm going to cut this about a ½ an inch or so above that cutting, and I've got a little leaf. I'm going to leave that there, and I'll cut that one off, clean this up a little bit. Now I can use rooting compound, but Weigela does a really nice job rooting without rooting compound. So all I'm going to do is take my pruner, and I'm just going to scar the side of that cutting, and then I'm going to put that down in the propagation box. Make sure that's nice and tight there. Okay. All right, we'll take that same cutting that we were just using. We're going to clean that up a little bit. Cut that at a slight angle below the leaf node. I'm going to cut this leaf in half so it's not using as much energy. Same thing here. And cut that just above. That's a little too soft. We can try that, but this may be a little too soft to actually grow any roots. So I'm probably going to discard that. But that should grow nice roots. I'll scar that there on the side. That cadmium layer. About 1 inch apart inside the propagation box. A couple more cuttings here. This one's a small one, but good chance this is going to grow roots. Scar the bottom so you can see that the cadmium layer, and put that at about 1 inch or so. Make sure it's packed into the sand well, and there's no air allowed to get to that stem. Okay, so it's been 1 week since we placed these in the propagation box, and I stuck this under some shade to give it a little extra protection from the sun. But we've been in a heat wave this week. It is mid to upper 90s, and next week's supposed to be even worse. So let's take a look and see how the cuttings look. As you can see, they're very green, not having any issues at all. And I've been misting these I generally try to do them about once a day, but I have missed a couple of days this week, so they are still doing fine. And I stuck some double 5 viburnum cuttings in here as well, so doing great. And what we're going to do is I recommend that about once a day, you can, if you're not going to run this off of an automatic system, that you find a sprayer of some sort and just lightly mist the leaves. And the reason being is that will help the plants absorb moisture. Since they don't have a root system, it will help them absorb moisture through the leaves. And so this is important to do during the propagation process until it begins to develop its own root system. And also you'll want to keep the sand moist as well, so check the sand and be sure that it's nice and moist, and add water accordingly, especially if it's very hot. So hope that helps. So we'll do a follow-up video on this soon once the plants have begun to root. The way you'll check that, usually about 4 to 6 weeks in, you'll just grab a cutting and just gently tug on it and you should, if you just tug up and down, you should be able to feel some resistance if there is a root system developed. But this will take somewhere between, I'd say, 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the plant. And we'll do a follow-up video on that a little later. Thank you for watching this video. If this was helpful to you, please comment below or leave a question. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell for notifications. Thank you.